Bro. Hello, gamers. Oh man. I was actually terrified. I I made the, in retrospect, the obvious mistake of updating my base system, and of course, new NVIDIA drivers for this machine, which meant that OBS failed to start because I have OBS installed as a Flatpak. And I was terrified when it didn't start. Oh, the drivers do not match. What? What? Wait, what? And yeah, it just needed a Flatpak update, but I was absolutely terrified. Never, ever update. Ever. Install. Never update. Oh, man. Okie dokes. So, welcome back to the writing the beginner's tutorial for GNOME developers, or for beginners in GNOME development. The goal of these streams is to, well, for me, is to actually write the tutorial. And for everyone else who's watching them is to just hear me and see me struggle with restructured text, Sphinx, generating documentation, writing English. I managed to fail that multiple times because there's nothing like writing under the supervision of somebody else, which is why I absolutely and completely fail at pair programming or whatever else, whatever new invention they create for faking a collaborative effort in person, because I cannot literally stand having somebody else hovering over my shoulder and looking at what I'm doing. You would think that it would actually be easier, right? Because you have somebody else nearby and you can just bounce stuff. And that's the theory. Of course, it's terrible because it's never that easy. I'm literally, either I am completely immersed, like hyper focused on some task, at which point you could be, I don't know, playing a vuvuzela near me and I wouldn't notice at all, or I'm just trying to figure out what to write, at which point having another person looking at me all the time makes me super self-conscious and distracts me like nothing else would. So yeah, pair programming, not even once. Just don't do it. Let me see, let's put on some music. Very low. Hope it's not too high. Yeah. Of course, since this is Twitch, I have to use some royalty-free stuff, otherwise everything gets muted and I get a copyright strike, and yeah. I would usually put on some electronic music anyway, but not random royalty-free stuff, because I do have taste. It's a shitty taste, but I do have taste. To be fair, most of the time I actually listen to J-pop because I don't understand the words, so I don't get distracted by the lyrics, which is a very, very stupid thing to do, because after a while you start to understand a little bit of random Japanese words, at which point you basically, it failed. The task failed successfully. Okay. So, I managed to put the VOD from the last session on YouTube, and hopefully it doesn't awfully suck. But yeah, let's see how it goes. This one will also be put online. Yeah, Matthias, I completely agree. I do prefer working alone. I used to work on multiple open plan offices, and you had multiple people around you. Most of the time they had headphones on, so they would not interact with you at all. But the end result was that you could just do banter, and if you had any problems you could call anybody. But after the initial issue was solved, or as soon as you get into the groove, then please go away. I need to fix this. And yeah, nerd detected. Of course. I'm a nerd. I'm literally streaming writing documentation for a free and open source software project. Of course I'm a nerd. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good today. And yeah, I've got my tea, I've got my music, the stream is going. It's a good day. It's a lot colder in London, where I am right now. The first couple of days of the new year were unseasonably warm, like 15-16 degrees. It was awful. Now we are back around 0-ish, so we are going back to the actual winter temperature that I expect. Yeah, you're watching me doing this. So yeah, complete nerd alert here as well. Oh, let's see. Yeah, let's go to the desktop and see where we're at. Okay, so I'm back in Builder. As I said last time, I prefer Builder because it does a good job at syntax highlighting by not being so greedy and trying to syntax highlight as restructured text, even code examples. So yeah, so last time I wrote the the GTK box tutorial. So where were you? Tutorials, beginners. Yeah, I did the box tutorial, which was fairly simple. Well, no, it wasn't fairly simple, but it was fairly approachable. So the other components that we are up for are layout, buttons, text entries, dialogues, menus, and the progress indicator, and the stuff that slides, and the progressive disclosure. So these are leaf widgets, like expanders. Well, they're not leaf widgets, but an expander doesn't do much. It's literally just, it expands to reveal stuff. And same as the revealer. So they don't take that long. The menus are going to be interesting because they also require you to understand the gmenu model API. So the way we describe menus. For those who are used to GTK 3 and GTK 2, well, if you're used to GTK 2, you probably were using the GTK UI Manager, which was a way to describe menu structure and menus and menu structures, as well as toolbars using XML. Before we had GTK Builder. Then in GTK 3, GTK 3, we basically said, no, don't, that stuff is deprecated, use the Builder XML to construct your menus, but you were literally constructing widgets. And at some point we added gmenu, which was a new API that we needed to essentially describe menus to be sent over dbus to GNOME Shell and Unity at the time, and also on macOS to describe the menus that would be sent over to the panel, the top panel, to the global menus that are available on macOS. And the gmenu API is fairly low level, but it's basically a description of a menu structure. Every time you press, well, you take that description and you send it either over the wire or you send it to the toolkit, and the toolkit will build the menus for you using that description. And every time you press a button, press a menu item, the menu item will raise an action instead of calling a callback. That is needed because the menu can be sent over the wire to another process that will build the menu for you, which means that you cannot set a callback in your code and then expect that the other process will call your code that way. The old Unity global menu hack was basically on Ubuntu was literally a patch to GTK that would take the GTK menu widgets, serialize them over the wire, send them to the compositor, the Unity compositor, and then that will build the UI for you. And then whenever you press a menu item there, it would figure out what to do, and then send back a message to GTK, and it would do some weird thing, and then we'll fake it basically. Oh, thanks for the follow, Aventigil. So the entire thing was, sorry about that. Yeah, the entire thing was interesting. Was a massive hack, but yeah. Then gmenu was introduced that does this properly. So you specify the menu structure and then you send it over the wire, and then it will signal the toolkit using dbus signals and things like that. Which is actually how would you implement a thing like status icons these days. You would not do it the way it's done in GTK 3. But of course that requires writing a ton of code and updating applications, and nobody wants to update applications that were written for Ubuntu 12.04 by some random company like Dropbox. They don't really care about that, don't really care about Linux. But yeah, if you're wondering why GNOME doesn't have a tray, that's the reason why. But yeah, so the menu stuff is going to be complicated because there's a lot of stuff there that you have to describe. So it will take a while. And we already have tutorials in the developer documentation for that. Yeah. we do already have tutorials for that, like menus here, which is both the menu and the action tutorials are part of the old How Do I documentation on the wiki, and I ported them to the new website. This is like not a beginner tutorial. You have to already have a fairly decent understanding of how stuff works in GTK, but if you're porting your code from GTK 3 to GTK 4, they should help. Even if you're porting your code in GTK 3 to the new menu structure, then you should be able to deal with it. But for beginners, like to the platform, a lot of this stuff is a little bit too advanced. Whereas we want to do this for beginners, so people that have just started with our platform and want to see how to get from the basics or from the UI patterns to actual code before jumping into the API references. We could go for buttons, like toggle buttons. Yeah, toggle buttons are fine. Yeah, I was saying on Monday, doing grids is basically going to be like very similar to boxes, like mostly copy and pasting, except that I have to explain how rows and columns work. Luckily in GTK 4 we fixed the API. Before, in GTK 3 the grid had this weird top left attach attributes. They were, and you had to, okay, I attach the top and then attach the left and then what? Instead of being, this widget is going to be on row 0, column 0, so that stop doing attach. And it's gonna span 2 columns, for instance. It's not gonna be attached to the left 0 and then attached to the right 1. It's, yeah, was such a, I don't understand that API was weird, was named weird. Yeah, let's go with buttons. Buttons are usually like a massive thing inside any UI, so people will start looking at that stuff pretty soon. And the tutorial for beginners that we used to have for GNOME 3.0 already has some stuff there that we can poach. So we don't start from exactly 0. It's a lot of code there. Yeah. Yeah, one thing that the getting started like section is gonna be describing signals and callbacks. It's not gonna be inside UI components. I'll take it as a given that you know how signals work in GTK if you're getting here for the time being. Then we're gonna get the getting started that will explain you pack stuff into boxes and then you connect to signals to react to user interaction. Otherwise it's gonna be a lot of copy and paste if I have to explain signals every time. Right, so I switched to the dark theme because my entire desktop is dark themed now. I have OBS, I have Twitch open, I have Builder, and honestly, having Builder like super white, it was making my higher. Right, so let's start with toggle button. Toggle buttons should be at the very least pretty simple. At the very least should not be. Oh, they shouldn't be too complicated because they are fairly self-contained. So we create a new file. We call it toggle RST, and then we go to the template that I wrote early on, so I can take it and paste it here. Let me just check again. Toggles, yes. So we also want to go to the API reference. I usually start from the API reference as a way to for the description of the page, mostly because if the tutorial for that particular UI element matches a class inside the API reference, keeping the two close or at the very least similar lowers the impedance mismatch between the API reference and the tutorials, so you can go from one to the other pretty easily. Yeah, this is actually fairly good. Fairly good start. Okay, but we don't want is a right button which remains pressed in when clicked. Clicking it again will cause the toggle button to return to its normal state. That's that's really easy. We go and check if the yeah, there's a nice section about toggle buttons inside the interface guidelines that we can refer to. Super easy. We also want to go back to the for instance, one of the obvious issues here, like the thing that we're trying to address in this tutorial, is that the API reference tells you that you can check the state using GTK toggle button get active. But if you're familiar, well, if you're not familiar with GTK, you start with GTK button, and the button has a clicked signal, right? So you go with the clicked signal. So you connect to the clicked signal, and then you check for the active, and then no, there is an actual signal here that is toggled. Or you could notify, use notify active, for instance. But yeah, if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, this example tells you something but doesn't actually tell you a lot. Like, yeah, creating 2 GTK toggle button widgets. What's the difference between creating 2 of these widgets and creating just 1? Well, in this case, you create 2 because then you can use the same outputs, the same callback to handle both. But to be fair, that's not a great idea to begin with. Which is a classic, actually. I've seen a lot of people, like a lot of newcomers, arrive on the GTK Matrix or IRC channel, and they say, how can I like call random stuff in this callback, and I want to use the same callback for like 12 toggle buttons. How do I distinguish between toggle buttons? Like, no, you're not paying per function. You do realize that you can use different functions. It's literally, that's not complicated. Which is, it's something that it happens so many times, and I don't understand where the idea comes from, especially when using the C API. It's like, yeah, you're not paying for function. You're not paying per function. You can use multiple functions. And if you want to call the same thing inside that callback, you can do it. You abstract the code inside a separate function that gets called by different callbacks. You don't have to literally use the same callback every time. Mostly because that usually leads to either a massive global state, which then is a pain to handle, or simply because people start attaching data to object instances, and then they do comparisons there, and so this is gonna be super slow. It's pointless. Why are you doing this? Just use different callbacks and then call a single function. It's, yeah, it's not like it's gonna be optimized away anyway, so I guess because people expect, like, oh, I have a single function, so the compiler will optimize it in some ways. And no, the compiler will not optimize it, because you're using function pointers. And actually, not only you're using function pointers, the function pointers get wrapped into weird glib constructs. They will never be optimized away. So you're paying the price anyway. You get more internal functions that are invisible from the outside, but that doesn't matter. Oh, and yeah, this is not good, because you get the coding style, especially for smaller windows. Yeah, this is a little bit of a meh. Yeah, Manuele, do not do this. Do not go into a tangent. Oh, screw it. I go into a tangent. So, yeah. So ideally, if you are able to do this, this is one of the reasons why I wrote the entire the new documentation generator for GTK, so that I could, when I'm reading the documentation and I see something wrong, I can literally go and do something like this without having to switch to another terminal and do stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, let's start a new. Oh no, no. Yeah, this is bad. I need to fix the link, otherwise I'm gonna edit the wrong branch. So let's go back. Okay, I'm updating the main branch. Perfect. But I don't want to. I don't want to commit directly to main. So annoying. What the heck? Yeah, this is one of the side effects. Yeah. This is one of the side effects of, how's it called? Of GitLab Web UI. If you're part of the GNOME group and you try to edit stuff, it will try to commit straight to the branch, which is yikes. And of course, my fork of GNOME GTK is super old and I don't want to fix it. Okay, tangent avoided. I don't have to fix this now. But yeah, if you're not part of a GNOME group or you have an up-to-date fork of GTK inside GitLab in your namespace, then you can edit stuff. And then once you edit stuff, you can then open a merge request. And opening a merge request is a lot easier because then it goes through the CI pipeline and you can notice if something stupid happened. Yeah. Do we have a section? Yeah. No. We are gonna put the code example straight into the top. We're gonna put it straight to the top because it's not really a section, and so the section I'm envisioning right now is the #1 issue of I have a toggle button. I have connected a handler to know a signal handler to know if it's being toggled by the user, but I also have some other control that will, or some other code that will toggle the toggle button programmatically. How do I distinguish a programmatic toggle from a non-programmatic one? And the short answer is you don't. The longer answer is it's something I want to write, so I don't have to continuously explain it on Matrix or IRC. But for the top level example, we can go for a very simple. Yeah, no. Let's use decent naming. New label. Then we do big connect toggled. Then we have to do something like this. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna... This is not gonna be super pretty. But it should do. And we do something like... If we button get active. So if it's active, then we do GTK label. So yeah, this is as simple as it gets, honestly. The other option, instead of using hello and goodbye, is to use icons, but I don't want to use icons. The icon thing is gonna be then I have to introduce like symbolics, and I have to introduce the icon themes, and no, I won't do that. Yeah, this is a very, very, very simple example. And now we port it to Python. Python, at the very least, has local functions, so I don't have to do weird. I can do something like this. If props active, bubble label is goodbye. And then a very simple bubble equals and that's it. Right. Yeah, as soon as this beginner's tutorial gets a little bit more fleshed out, and I'll merge it into the main branch of the developer documentation, I'll ask people that do not use C or Python to start to port the examples to their language. I'll also have to add a small README saying describing what are the rules for the examples, which is do a one-to-one port as much as possible, keeping the variable names the same, keeping the order the same. Try not to be too cute with the idiomatic code style or idiomatic like coding practices, because the idea is that you should be able to, once you read, like, I don't know, the Python example, you should be able to read the JavaScript example and the Val example or the C example without too much of a cognitive load. Otherwise, we failed. So this is a simple example, right? And yeah, then we want a section. Well, first of all, we want to deal with this. A link to the API reference. Yeah, very simple link so that people can immediately just jump into the API reference. There are no useful methods. Oh yeah, the group. Yeah, no, this one is gonna be after that. So, grouping toggle buttons. Yeah. Which theoretically is like radio button, but that does not look at radio button. Radio buttons are check buttons in a group, but check buttons are also like toggle buttons. So yeah, toggling. Yeah, this is the section I wanted to write about how to handle this programmatic toggling. And then we'll have a section on grouping. Oops. And since toggle button doesn't really have anything else in terms of API, in mnemonics, yeah, maybe this, yeah. Well, we can start, or you can already do something like this. Run shortcut to your toggle button. You can use the unit mnemonic constructor, which is pretty much the same as a GTK button. Oh, come on. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah, let's go back to the programmatic toggling of toggle buttons. Okay. Sorry, my fingers, after a while, they get really cramped up and I have to pop them. If you're hearing like random popping noises in the audio, it's me popping my knuckles. It's terrible, but after a while my fingers just get completely scrunched up. Okay, so if you have a toggle button that can be boosted, can be changed for anything, as well as either, you will not be able to distinguish two cases. I can use VK toggle button. I can use the hard part of writing like the script, the descriptions is that you have to write it in a way that how to say, yeah, that is readable from multiple languages. The examples are going to be in multiple languages, and the overall documentation is not C centric. C is just one of the languages, so you have to think in terms of methods, constructors, and everything, but not use the C symbols, because otherwise it gets harder to translate in your head. So you can use the toggle method or the GK toggle button toggle. Is it toggle? Yeah, no, active property to programmatically toggle, programmatically change the state of a toggle. So an example in C is going to be something like this. And then the toggle I like this. Since the documentation is pretty like, yeah, toggle emits a toggle signal on GK toggle button. There is no good reason for an application ever to call this function, which is absolutely true. But also, yeah, it reminds me of the documentation in some Rust crate that says, it's some standard Rust crate that says, if you don't know what this does, then you should not be using it. If you do know what this does, then please come back and tell us so we can fix the documentation. Which is absolutely hilarious, and we should use it everywhere in our API reference. Okay, yeah, let's go with set active. You can use the what is it? Yeah. Okay, and then do the same thing. Yeah, the important part now comes with you one two. Okay, you prevent changing, oh my god, changing the state of the toggle button will, this is a toggled here, it's not toggle, yeah, will emit the toggle button toggled signal if you are changing the, if you are programmatically changing the state of the toggle button. Now changing the well, also admit that, yeah. And you wish to avoid your finger and left. I don't want to use a passive voice here. Well, it's not that I don't want to. I wrote the coding style, the documentation style guidelines, and the documentation style guidelines say you should absolutely avoid the the passive voice. So if you wish to this is gonna be interesting. Okay, wish to avoid executing. It's so bad. Your own signal handler. You're on callback. Maybe on callback. You would yeah. Map equal to set active with let's go here. Let's see if we can find them. Yep. Not wrap, but yeah, you should block your own function, your own callback. Before calling set active. It's not great, but probably needs some tweaking. I'll think about it. So you do something like this. Oh. A signal handler set block iPhone toggle on toggle a toggle button active. And it's in. Yep. Well, this is gonna be fun to translate in Python. Yes. Yeah, the toggle and untoggle are defined elsewhere trick is comes straight from the Apple API references. They have examples, like they have fragments of examples, and usually when they refer to some variable and they want to avoid a ton of setup code, then they just say, this has been defined elsewhere, don't worry about them. Don't look at the hand over here on the right, just keep your eyes on this. And it's a neat trick, and I actually like it a lot when writing documentation. Okay, so this is gonna be fun. How do I check that? I will check if the Python version of that. We can go straight to PyGObject and look if handlers block. Yeah, because signal handlers blocked by func is actually a macro. It's not an actual function. It's a wrapper around signal handlers block matched, and block matched is here, and it's a super complicated function. So much fun. But Python, luckily, the Python test suite already has a pretty good version. So we can do this. And we copy this. Basically, we open code it. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Okay, so we do signal ID, and we GObject signal. Oh, actually, detail. No, we don't care about the detail, so we can do something like this. Or not. No, we have to copy it. No, it's fine. Signal parse name. Call it toggled. Maybe J true. Not J. Toggle true. Then we do block map. Then we do flags, so we don't do a massive type massive line. And we can do something a little bit easier. Detail is 0. Larger is Oh, what? Mm-hmm. What's foo? Yeah, I guess we can... Oh, this is gonna be fun. Is there some other stuff that we can use? Hacked workaround. Jesus. Yeah, we don't have anything else. Oh, thanks, but thank you. Yeah, I'm don't know how to pronounce Pudim Vlado, I think. Yeah. Thank you for sticking around. Oh, this is gonna be interesting now. Yeah. Let's see if somebody else has some. No, not GNOME music. I'm trying to find some I'm trying to find some Python application that has something like this. In case somebody already solved this problem. You know, it's always kind of exciting to find the dark edges of. Oh. Let's look inside the entirety of my GHBuild checkout. Like I'm using ripgrep and not using grep, so I can actually tell it to look only for Python. Wow, nothing. Oh my god. This is... yeah. Ouch. This would be interesting to have some feedback from the Python developers, but I don't have them here, so I don't think last guy is online either. I mean, this one could be as easy as this, and then what's it called? Bung would be dummy, beta would be dummy as well, and this would be something like this. Let's keep it this way, and then I'll try and see if I can get Laska's help. And then this one should be fine. And maybe, yeah, I could open a merge request for 5G object to add an implementation of this function of block by func as a native Python. Yeah, because it's pretty impressive that we don't have it. I'm honestly shocked. Yeah, it's just a signal test suite. Yeah, let's keep it here, and then I'll bother Laska and see if I can get somewhere. And if I can't, then I'll open a merge request for a Python version of this. Yeah, it's kind of annoying, especially because we want this to be kind of reference documentation. And if I tell Python developers, this is how you do it, and they will look at me and say, yeah, no, screw you. Okay, so, yeah, grouping buttons. These two, we can pick it up from the API reference. We can literally just copy and paste it. This is going to be another interesting one because the set group, no, it takes a toggle button. So we do labs, swing. Okay. I honestly decided after Monday's stream, I honestly decided that I will never use foo, bar, and buzz anymore, and I will always use live, laugh, and love as the basic example variables, because A, I find it extremely funny, and B, they do not require weird nerd knowledge to know that what foo bar is and foo, bar, and buzz are. So yeah, live, laugh, and love. I want to make it happen. And I don't care if they don't align. I gladly take the hit on the alignment of the variable names and the various lines. Again, I find it's funny to me. And since I'm the one writing the documentation, well, it's gonna be, you either find it funny too, or, well, I mean, that group. And then here. This will be a good time to write. I'll probably also write the XML version, since it's entirely declarative, so I'm not connecting signals or doing weird stuff, so I'll just add an example on how to define this stuff inside a XML file, a UI definition file. Honestly, I cannot stop. Cannot stop laughing. Sorry. Alright, there is a property. Yes, there is a property, so I can actually do this. Like this. It's easier to immediately see what I'm aiming for. This is gonna be fun. So label, it's gonna be yes, and then we close it, then we open a new one. Close it, and then we copy this. Yeah, you can see it's not incredibly hard to write documentation, writing the UI files directly inside text editor. It's just annoying. Wait a second. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So if we literally take this and we go into projects chunk, buttons, why? No, not Vim. Not Vim. Yep. Oh god. Why? Why gedit? I don't want gedit. Ah. God. Okay. So. And then we copy it. Yes, yes. I need to change the default handler for my text files. go for my eyes. And then we do for folder tool preview. Yay. But yeah. And there you go. You can see that it works. It would need a little bit of margin, but oh god. And then margin up. Add a little bit of margin. And we do something like this. Not left, sorry, margin start. This one should be okay. Yeah, a little bit better. Yeah. Yeah, you can see that they act as radio buttons without looking as a radio button, but it's a radio button. Yeah. I'm going to add a bunch of these examples to the XML examples to the web to the repository as well, even if they're not going to be included in the actual output. I'm gonna add it so that we can take screenshots every time the theme changes. Basically, I cannot, for instance, I cannot take a screenshot right now because it will look like GNOME 40. I'm gonna wait until I have a version of GNOME that is more up to date. As soon as I update my base system to not Ubuntu, so I can get GNOME 42 when it's out, and then take screenshots of that so that they don't look out of place, especially if we start getting libadwaita and the new theming. Yeah. Yeah, this is not too bad at all. It's a lot more complicated than I thought it would be at the beginning. As usual, because once you start, you realize, oh, I could probably talk about something like that. But yeah. I should probably emphasize as well. One, 2, and 4. And this one, yeah, I'm not going to emphasize anything here because it's too complicated. Until we have an actual version of this function that can be called, I will not be able to emphasize it. It's yuck. Yeah, okay, so. Let's see, we can add the inner toggle and components are Steam. Yep. And then we commit section on toggle buttons. And then we push. And we see what happens once we... Yep. Just pushed. This is the new pipeline, and we're gonna wait to see how's the render. Oh, I didn't run it locally. Ugh. Like anything. Ha 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 ha. Yes. There was an error. Awesome. Where? Okay. Oh, this is good fun. I did not expect that to happen. Oh, you failed me, Code Sphinx tabs. Why? Oh, this is good fun. So, this is bad. Maybe I added something that is not supposed to be there. Let's see. Yeah, I should have run this beforehand. No, it's not that. Okay. So it goes out of bounds. It would be more interesting to see where. It's missing the code tabs? Why? Or maybe it's this one. No, it's not this one. Or if it is this one, it's not that. Oh, this is interesting. Never happened before. Oh, yeah. Yeah, as expected. Ah, God. I love it when that happens. Isn't that great? Okay. Because of course, tab is a perfectly valid pragma for the Sphinx tabs extension, but it must exist within a tabs pragma. And if it doesn't, instead of warning you like a normal human being, it will just vomit a Python backtrace at you. I mean, you're supposed to know how things work, right? Yikes. Yeah. Okay, the pipeline, the latest pipeline. I love it that it passed. Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, it could warn you like normal, right? Oh, you put tab into it, but you didn't specify a tab spragma. So what the hell? Instead, oh, you know Python, so blah. I have to update Fedora 35. Really have to. Yeah, we're getting close to end of January. Well, we're getting close to end of January said on the 5th of January, but we're getting close to end of January, then there's February, March there's the GNOME 42 release, and then Fedora 36 is gonna be out at any point in time after that. At some point they will do a release on time. But when that happens, Fedora 34 will go completely out of... It's already kind of out of the lifetime, the expected lifetime, so 35 will be the next step. But once you do that, you have to update... I'll have to update Sphinx to a new version because the Fedora 34 comes with Python 3.9 and Fedora 35 with 3.10, and then I'll have to check that both Foro and Sphinx tabs use the appropriate version. And stuff might break. And I don't really like it. Okay, let's go and see the render. Documentation. Let's go with components. And then we go to toggles. And there we have it. Yeah, and as soon as I can start taking screenshots, there will be a screenshot here of the group button and another example here of a toggle button. Clicked and unclicked. Well, active and not active. Okay. Well, that took us a little bit longer than I expected, to be fair. For toggle buttons. But we are on a roll, so let's go with checkboxes. So checkboxes are literally just toggle buttons, but they render differently. And same as radio buttons, they are toggle buttons that in a group that render differently. Especially in GTK4, we reorganized the hierarchy of buttons, of button widgets. So you have a toggle button, and a check button. But for instance, you don't have a radio button anymore. Because as soon as you group check buttons together, then you are you're basically expecting it to be able to look like a radio button. if you don't want a radio button to look like this, you don't want the indicator, so you can group toggle buttons, at which point you have a radio button that doesn't look like a radio button but behaves as a radio button. And ironically, the toggle buttons in a group are the actual radio buttons because they match the behavior of buttons found on old-timey car radios to select the frequency, like store the frequency and select the frequency. The thing with the radio here, it's a it's a new thing. It's like, yeah, late 80s, early 90s, so new. Okay. So yeah, let's go with check buttons. We could even fold the component like radio button to be a subsection of checkboxes, just like the API reference. Otherwise, we just don't do that. And we say, just use a check button. And radio buttons are check buttons in a group. That's it. Because people will search for radio button, and if they don't find it, they will ask, how do I make radio buttons? So let's go with checkboxes. So we go in the beginners, go components, add doc, and then we do and then we add it here as well. Yeah, we need to add it inside the table of content tree, but since we hide it because we have our own, then we need to specify the link here. Otherwise, if we didn't want to have this entire structure and we wanted Sphinx to generate it for us, then we would remove the hidden modifier from the pragma, and then Sphinx would do the job. But since we have grouping and we have a bunch of other things, then yeah, it's pointless. But we still need to add it inside the talk tree pragma. Otherwise, Sphinx will not know that checkbox is part of the documentation tree. It's kind of annoying, but what can you do? Okay, so we create a new file, call it checkbox rst. We go to the template, copy it, checkbox, paste it, and then we go boxes using title case. The article title is title case, and the section is normal. I don't know how sentence case. So just the first letter is uppercase, and the rest of the words are lowercase. So check button. Are how do I skip? It goes into weird philosophical territory here. What is a check button? what really is a check button? Checkboxes are buttons that present display effect indicator next to their label. Let's go checkboxes. Thank you to the authors of the gig, so we can have ready-made links with nice screenshots. Oh, sentence capitalization, that's it. Yeah, the mix state is gonna be fun. What are we going to do here? So check button in GTK 3 used to be a toggle button. So you could say, if you want to know how a check button works, go to GTK toggle button, read it, and then check button is the same with an indicator instead of being a button. And now they are not. They are very much not. Because that made more problems than it actually solved. It's one of the it's one of the issues of many UI toolkits, the tendency of creating complex hierarchies of types. And then do weird stuff with that. Oh, hi Alatiera. Thank you for the follow. And yeah, it's always there's a tendency, and GTK embodied that tendency like to the hilt. Let's create a deeply nested hierarchy of types. And it turns out that object orientation is extremely overrated. I'm not going to go and say it was a mistake, but it was a mistake. Oh, huh? Yeah, it's the VOD on YouTube is kind of an attempt at not only archiving all this stuff, but also to catch people that don't want to log into Twitch. But yeah, if you want to log into Twitch and follow, so you get notifications whenever I do a stream. Also because I'll probably not just do streams on documentation and hacking. Now that I have my desktop PC instead of having my laptop, I will try and also stream some gaming. Not like Apex, because I suck at first-person shooters, but I was thinking about doing some retro gaming, like old 90s games, if they can run on Linux. So if you want to see me struggling to play old games like Alpha Centauri or Master of Orion, then I'll probably start doing some streams for those during the weekend or late in the evening. My home office is not soundproof. It's good enough to not suck entirely at when I talk, so you don't get weird echoes, but it's not soundproof at all, and it the wall at the back is shared with my bedroom, which means that streaming until like 2 in the morning, it's no. I don't live alone. I'm my partner will be extremely angry with me if I keep talking, even at this tone of voice, if I keep talking until like 2 or 4 in the morning. They are already they're not happy when I stay up until 2 watching like gaming streams and laughing. Okay, so yeah, check buttons. Yeah, I'm not gonna add a section grouping because the section grouping is gonna be radio buttons. So I'm just gonna go and add an example here without sections. And useful methods, I'm gonna add an inconsistent mention of the inconsistent state. Here's the set inconsistent method to set this state. And the mnemonic as well. If you want to enable a mnemonic shortcut for your checkbox, you can use the mnemonic constructor or the use underline method. And the API reference, we're gonna link GTK button. The fact that the new API reference website has stable links that are immediately clear, it's great, because every time I had to document, I had to answer a question on IRC or mailing list or discourse or whatever, I had to open developer.gnome.org, go to the GTK API reference, look at what I was trying to link, copy the URL, and then paste it. Instead, if I want to know, if I want to link the check button index, I'll just do this. It's a load off of my mind. Should be a lot easier to deal with this stuff. Okay, so a check button new with label. What does the... No, this is... Yeah. Let's see if the old ones. Buttons and toggles, check button. Show title. Well, yeah. And then connect the toggled signal here. Roll back on toggled. Elsewhere, because I don't want to deal with that. And same here. Check. It's the finals were, yeah. And yeah. So this one is trivial because the grouping is going to be described in the radio button section. So for the time being, we do something like this. And source for beginners, components. We commit it. Beginners, add section on checkboxes. And then we immediately add radio buttons. First thing. So we can go inside the components and do the radio buttons section, which is going to be exactly like the checkbox section, but it's going to introduce the concept of grouping. So we actually go to the checkbox, copy and paste it, select them and give them next to the label and belong to a group of similar things which can only one radio button in the group can be selected. And here we go with the wait, let's go to the ready button. Okay. Ooh, forgot. Yeah, it's one of the problems of writing Python and C. You end up with an unholy mess of something that doesn't look like either language. It's always good fun. Okay, actually, so I don't want to lose that. Okay, so we go back to the radio button. And then we do oh, come on. And then we select the group for the other button using okay, same thing in Python. And that's it. Do we also want to show how to connect? No, because I have to connect every single thing and it's boring. Let's drop it. And we also don't have to add the XML because, yeah, it's easy. We add this as well. The API references are the same, so it's fine. And that's it. So we add radio buttons, a component, we commit it using and then we push it to get a render, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, basically at some point we will get to something similar for other sections or other UI elements. I don't want to get bogged down into too many details inside this because these are beginner's tutorials. They should give you enough information on how to deal with this, on how to deal with building a UI, and after that you're going to be pretty much on your own. mostly because it's not going to be a beginner tutorial anymore. If you want I know that for some people it's easier to follow a strict set of rules to go from A to B across all the steps, but building a UI that way never really works, so you have to jump between various sections at all times. So it's not like you can start with I'm gonna learn buttons, then I'm gonna learn checkboxes, and then I'm gonna learn entries, and then I'm gonna learn this and this. You're gonna, what do I need? For this, I need an entry. Okay, and then for this, I'm gonna need a checkbox. And then for this, I'm gonna need a toggle button. So it's gonna be different depending on what you're trying to achieve anyway. And another thing that people usually ask is, I want to create an application. Can you make a tutorial and I create a complex application? And very few realize that writing a tutorial on how to write a complex application is virtually undistinguishable from writing a complex application. At which point, my strong suggestion is clone an existing complex application, then go through the Git history and see what changed. That will teach you much more. You cannot really ask people that are contributing to GNOME voluntarily to write a complex application for you and then basically document every single commit as a tutorial, because that never works. Okay, we have a build and we have a set of artifacts and we have a render. Tutorials, beginners, components. So, yep. Let's go see checkbox. We have Python. Yeah. Yeah, the link is correct. And then we go for radio buttons. And that's it. Yeah, that worked fine. What is next? Can we finish the spin? Can we finish the button? Spin buttons. Spin buttons. Spin buttons require explaining what's an adjustment, I think. Also, to be fair, I probably used spin buttons like 3 times in total over 15 years of contributing to GNOME. Probably in 20 years of writing GTK code, I've probably used them like 5 times. And the volume button. Oh, the volume button should be... I don't know if I should move it to sliders. Oh, sorry. Got my phone vibrating on my desk. Yeah, even adding a progress bar. Progress bars are interesting because they have the continuous mode and the progress mode. So the continuous mode will bounce back and forth. The activity mode will bounce back and forth. But in order to bounce back and forth, you have to deal with main loops and other things, and yeah. I don't even know what I'm gonna do when I get to the file selection dialog. probably just break down and cry. Yeah, we're getting into complications now. Everything that follows is gonna be complex. Like a password entry. Password entry is super trivial because it's all like, it's a text entry that has a password, that deals with passwords. So I don't have to go into the details of, yeah, the password entry is really using an internal buffer, secure buffer that doesn't let the kernel page out the memory areas with the with your password, so people can accidentally leak information, or at least this is what we assume. This code has been written so many years ago, and it's relying on kernel interfaces. So in theory, this is what it does. Have we tested it? Have we actually checked? No. I mean, again, we kind of assume that it does. Yeah, I mean, making a password. We could break the text entries section in starting with a password entry. Should we start with password entry? How big is it? How big is the password entry API? It's gonna be like 2 methods. Extra menu, peak icon. Yeah, if we go with a set extra menu, then oh, there's a menu model, and now you have to explain the menu models. Yeah, absolutely. That we all assume because, yeah, I'm absolutely 100% like sure that the person that wrote the original secure buffer tested it, and the way I'm positively sure is because it was written by the maintainer of the keyring and a bunch of other things that dealt with the security aspect of GTK and GNOME. I mainly just, I'm not gonna say copy pasted, but kind of copy pasted the code inside GTK. Oh, thank you for the follow, Surveyor3. But I mainly like took that code and cleaned up a little bit so it doesn't look like it was written in 2006, 2007. But since it's not using glib because it cannot, it's a memory allocator. So it cannot use glib because glib has its own memory allocation like code. So strictly speaking, it's a memory allocator. It's a secure memory allocator. Secure in the sense that it doesn't get paged. The same code currently exists in your GNOME shell. It's the same type of buffer, text buffer, that stores the password when you log in inside GNOME shell or you unlock anything inside GNOME, like Polkit escalation, privilege escalation mechanism. So that code is being exercised. It exists. It's been in use, in continuous use for at the very least the past, I don't want to say 15 years, but 10 plus. I mean, let me GCR. It's gonna be GCR again. secure memory. Yeah. It was written in 2007. So it's nearly 15 years. Severe 3. I don't work for GNOME anymore. The foundation had to restructure the staff because funding wasn't enough. Currently I'm not working for anybody. Well, I'm currently contracting out. I'm not gonna say anything about that, but I'm contracting out and for a little while. And I'm not I'm taking it very easy. I probably gonna continue contracting out to whoever needs work on GTK or GNOME or anything like that. I'm not currently looking very hard because, again, I'm trying to keep it simple. At some point I might go look again for full-time employment, but I kind of like the idea of of working on GNOME in my own time, and companies that work on GNOME are very few and far between. And the other thing is that I'm in terms of seniority, I've been working on in a professional capacity for the past 15 years plus, which would technically put me inside a senior developer role. But if I get hired as a senior developer, at that point I will probably not write a lot of code anymore. Which is, again, fine. I don't particularly care, but I honestly enjoy working on GNOME. So if I can carve myself some time to work on GNOME, do these kind of streams where I work on GNOME on the GNOME stack and do stuff like that, then I'll be much happier than working like full-time on anything else. But I don't know. I'm still playing it by ear. The fact that we are still in pandemic mode is kind of freezing any consideration about what I want to do. There are also like family matters that I have to take care of, so the end result is that I need to take it a little bit on. I need to be working from home, and I need to be flexible with my time. So I might continue, like, try and see if I can get some contracting work in the future before looking for a full-time employment kind of job. But yeah, don't worry, you can ask. Okay, so yeah, let's go with a password entry at this point. It's a simple enough widget and shouldn't take us more than like 15-20 minutes. Okay. Oh, yeah, since it's happened a couple of times, the moderating bot is kind of aggressive. Not because I choose it to be. It's kind of a standard issue on Twitch, so I don't want to. If some stuff happens inside the chat and the moderating bot starts deleting stuff, then don't take it personally. It's a bot. It's I cannot do much about it. Right. So components. We can close these. and go text entry and go password entry, because password entry is simple. Last famous words. Below switch. And then we do here, new file. Steam. We go to the template, copy, paste everything. The UI, the HIG should have a section on password text fields. Password fields. There you go. So we go here and we copy paste this. Okay. And then we fudge. Yeah, we go like this, but instead of doing this, password entry is a text. Entry is a how do we call it? Yeah, text entry. That is how do we call that? And to be used for entering secrets. Password entry will not show its contents by default, and replace them with in clear text. No, by default. Will show a different character? No, will not show a different character. Well, it will show a different character, but useful methods. We can show yeah, the peak icon should be visible by default. Yeah, of course, there's no default value because it's not inside the introspection data. Yeah, if you go here, if you go on a property in the new API references and you look for the default value, sadly there is no default value, and it's not like I don't want to show the default value. It's not an intentional choice. It's because values are not stored inside the introspection data, which we use to generate the API reference, because values are complicated. Default values are complicated. They have a type. They're not strings. They literally have a type, and that type, well, there are multiple reasons. One is they have an actual type. They cannot be stringified. They cannot all be stringified, but also not every property has a default value. strictly speaking, every a property that uses an object or a box type will not have a default value. We have null as a default value, so it's not even available as an option. And the main problem is that the default value can be constructed at runtime by the instance itself. For instance, if you don't pass a property to the constructor, the instance might create its own internal value. And the other thing is that it's really hard to extract that default value when generating the introspection data. And finally, libraries can have different property types. So GObject defines a bunch of property types, but nothing prevents libraries that are built on top of GObject to define their own property types. It's not that complicated at all, but that means that they cannot be introspected because the default value is a concept that belongs inside the property definition, not at the base level, but at the derived type level, which means that GObject introspection cannot call generic API to extract the default value. So it's not inside the introspection data. One thing that I wanted to see if I could make was to add an annotation that let you specify a string, like simple text that contains the value, but that makes the documentation stanza inside the API, inside the library itself, a little bit too verbose, too big to be handled correctly. And the other thing is, at that point, you might as well add it inside the documentation. Like, for instance, whether to show an icon for revealing the content should actually say the default is yes, not have a default true, because that's kind of pointless. The documentation of the property should say, by default, the password entry will show the peak icon, because default value equals true is useful up to a point. I prefer the documentation to be clear and verbose instead of being super terse and be useful to nobody. If I'm visually scanning this and I say default true, and then I have to go back and see show peak icon, is show peak icon and positive? So true means that show peak icon is that the peak icon is visible, and I have to do a reverse engineer of the property name. Sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it's valid. But for instance, if this was called don't show peak icon, it points the default would be false, and then I have to do don't show peak icon is false, which means that show peak icon is true, which means that the peak icon will be visible. That doesn't help anybody. Okay, so example of that: a widget entry, and it's gonna be GTK country. And then yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's it, really. You can use the password entry placeholder text property to show placeholder text when the entry is not requested. Another one is you can disable the that's right. Big contents icon in the entry by setting the password entry show peak icon property to false, or by unsetting. I'm not gonna go into the set extra menu because set extra menu requires describing the gmenu model, and yeah, it's not gonna be fun. And there we have it. So we go with GDA password entry. Org GDA4 password entry. And that's it. Yeah, this is gonna be super easy. So tutorials, beginners, password entry, tutorials, beginners, components. Section on password entries. Let's build it locally to see if stuff breaks. Yep. And then we push. Okay. Let's see the latest pipeline. Close these. Yeah. Yeah, I think we can close on that as soon as the render is complete. We can figure that. We can figure what to do next. But in general, I think for today's stream we're good. We added a bunch of new sections. I don't expect this to take that long before I have it in a state where I can merge it into the main development branch, and basically give the chance to other GNOME contributors to, like, for instance, fix my truly awful English or write new examples in other languages. I mean, this entire endeavor came about because people were requesting a beginner's tutorial, but also they were requesting, like, they usually came on the newcomers channel asking where I can find, like, tutorials for Python or for Vala or for C# or for whatever other language. And usually the answer was you have to look inside documentation for your language, and that is not always possible. because some languages and some platforms have an older version. They do not track the bleeding edge version of GNOME. Whereas I want people to start from GTK4 and libadwaita and whatever. And I don't want to have them start with GTK3 and then when they have to use GTK3, then they have to port to GTK4. It's kind of annoying that way. Oh, good. So the render is complete. Tutorials, inners, components. Where is that? Password entries. Yep. Super trivial. And then you go password entry and interface guidelines. Perfect. Yeah, at some point, for instance, we have a ton of UI components here, but like, for instance, the layout stuff, I fully expect to be able to not just link to base widgets provided by GTK. I want to also add the Adwaita widgets here, so that people have a one-stop like page they can use to jump into the UI. Like libadwaita has a ton of layout widgets that let you do stuff like responsive layouts, at which point we shouldn't be just saying, okay, these are the basics for GTK and then you're on your own. When we say we are writing an application for GNOME, the application for GNOME also includes libadwaita. It's based on libadwaita. You cannot just not use it. If you're just writing an application for GTK with GTK because you're targeting other environments or you're targeting other or you want to have your application to be portable, then at that point you can start from here and you can skip the libadwaita bits. But at that point you might as well not use some of this stuff. And for instance, this is a pretty trivial GTK application. If I wanted to, I'd actually want to modify it so that instead of using GTK application, it uses Adwaita application. So you already have an application for GNOME, not an application for GTK. After all, this is the GNOME developer documentation, not the GTK developer documentation. Plus, if you're using GTK, you're probably targeting things like not just GNOME, but also you may be targeting Elementary or XFCE or whatever. At that point, you will not just use GTK, but you also use additional libraries that are particular to that environment. XFCE has its own components library. Elementary has Granite. If you're targeting that, then you will have their own developer documentation that you can follow. I mean, Elementary has a similar structure as to this, but targets Elementary, not GNOME, and I want GNOME to have the same kind of thing. But yeah, I think we made good progress for this time. Yeah, Elementary has good documentation. They focus on Vala because they are a Vala shop. They base the entire thing on Vala, and which means that if you're writing an application for Elementary, then you're probably gonna write it in Vala anyway, not in Python or C. even though you can, because they use you can up to a point. I don't know if the Granite and the other libraries in the elementary stack use esoteric functions of Vala inside their API, like generics, because if they do, then they are not bindable. So you cannot use the Python bindings to load that. But if they don't, then you can use Python. You could even use Rust or C# or JavaScript to write your elementary application. At which point you will go on the elementary website. You will not go on the GNOME website because you're targeting elementary. Of course, the elementary website then will take you back to the GTK website and the GNOME website, but you will not start from the GNOME developer documentation. That will be pointless. And the same thing happens here in GNOME. You start with GNOME, and then the GNOME developer documentation will point you to GTK or whatever else. But if you're here, it's because you want to write a GNOME application, not a GTK application. And this is kind of important, and it's an important distinction. So we should be mindful that if we expect people to use libadwaita for writing GNOME application, then our documentation should reflect that, not just do whatever. Okay, so I think this is a good place to stop our stream. So we can go back to my face. Yeah, as I've seen, all of this is available already on GitLab. So there's the beginners tutorial branch, and you can go there and experiment and look at how it renders and how it works. You can clone it and like work on it locally and see what happens. But also you can look at the main development branch and see if there are issues there, like typos or whatever else, and you can fix things. You can submit new tutorials as well. I would actually appreciate it a lot if people started looking at the the developer documentation website and added new tutorials, not just for beginners, but for everyone else. I don't want to see documentation on the wiki. I honestly don't want people to write documentation on the wiki, because yeah, it's not a good place to put documentation anymore. It's already hard to contribute to documentation. Let's not make it harder. I mean, you've seen it's technically possible, well, not technically, it's actively encouraged if you find some typo in the API the GTK API reference, to go on the GitLab UI and even edit the text straight from the web UI, and open a merge request and do that and let people review your contribution. It's a lot easier to do that than it used to be in the past, because I mean, that's the entire point of the exercise of having better documentation. And it's not just having better documentation to read, but also having better documentation to contribute to. An easier way to contribute to the documentation. Otherwise, what are we doing? It's not just our code that is free and open source. It's also our documentation, and should follow the same patterns. But yeah, so if you enjoyed this, especially if you're watching this on the VOD on YouTube, then why not subscribe, and why not follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/ibasi, and if you follow, then you get notified whenever I start streaming. And you can also follow me on YouTube, so you get notification when I upload a new VOD. You can also follow me on twitter.com/ibasi. It's a private account, I know, but if you send me a follow request, I usually look at them. I might back up my Twitter account after a while. Twitter is a very bad place, but I cannot stop the dopamine rush. So, you know, that's how it is. Yeah. If you're a developer, then you're much more used to contribute this way, Surveyor. It's true. It's absolutely true. Anyway, oh yeah, Twitter reading React stream. That would be so bad. I could do that for the GTK Twitter account. To be honest. Yeah, I'm not gonna promise that. I'm definitely not gonna promise that. I mean, honestly, if I could resurrect the GNOME 2 release day React stream, yes, that would be absolutely fun to do. I'll do it. I commit myself to doing a reaction stream on the GNOME 42 release day, because I know what happens when I open Phoronix, LWN, and Reddit. And I will absolutely dunk on people. It's gonna be, no. I might commit myself to that. I'll try and see if I can do it without pissing off too many people. But yeah, if you want to follow me, then YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are great places, and I'll try to keep on streaming, and hopefully it will be interesting for more than like a few of you. It will be more interesting for more people. And yeah, I will try and stream on Friday again, but on Friday I wanted to do some light coding, or at the very least some bug fixing, instead of doing the documentation, or at least half and half, or I'll see how I am on Friday, also because it's Friday. So but yeah, some code or some coding or some bug fixing, it will be an interesting change. But otherwise, I'll be here again on writing the documentation on Monday and on Wednesday, and we'll see what happens when we start hitting the complicated widgets, probably next week. Until then, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.